As you know, the Northeast chapter was the first chapter. And really, when you look at the lineup of the conferences that we hold every year, it really has had a significant impact on the industry. That's why we like to call ourselves the Learning Chapter, and we're quite proud of that.
Well, you know that NEC was the first chapter of AAAE and significantly influenced the direction of AAAE. But let me make the point that NEC and AAAE are airport professionals organization, right? It's for the airport staff. And by being for airports and airport staff, they're asserting the partnership that aviation is not just airlines or aircraft flying in and landing on a piece of tarmac, that an airport is an equal partner in the aviation industry, and the airport professionals who run those airports are vital to the industry and, of course, the community and the economy.
Well, NEC, as the oldest chapter of all of the chapters in the nation, I think has really been at the forefront of shaping not just AAAE, but also a lot of the association with airports large and small. I think that it has been, again, based on its history and based on the folks that have come before me, really been at the forefront of leadership across the country, really leading the way across the country.
That's a great question. One would be lobbying. They do a great job lobbying for us. Also, they've brought airport operators together, and that's extremely important. We now have one voice to help us win over decision makers in DC. So that's very important to the aviation.
Aviation industry has been shaped by the NEC for the forward-thinking leaders before. It started several events throughout the industry, like the International Snow Symposium, taking over and continue the education process of the conference in Hershey, Pennsylvania, the technical conference that allows people to grow and prosper, as well as being a leader in the forefront of diversity, equity, inclusion as we move forward.
Well, one of the opportunities I had when I was chapter president in 2018 was to put a focus on women in aviation. And that was really before the DE&I concepts had really come to play. So that I think that was an opportunity back then to really start exposing the chapter and on the national level more of the exposure of women in aviation and actually lack thereof. It was an interesting statistic that we found that year that I was the 6th chapter president that was female in 60 years that the chapter had been in existence. And coincidentally, a former past president, Jean Olivier, was also chair of the national organization, and she too was the only 6th female that had been chair in that position. So we were able to bring recognition to that and really give some more exposure to women in aviation that year. So that was one of the things that we were really proud of.
The Northeast chapter plays a crucial role in supporting and developing leaders within the aviation industry. It does a really crucial part of helping our young leaders connect, get engaged, learn through our development, and this has really changed how aviation is in the Northeast, throughout the United States, and even globally.
Primarily with the introducing young people to the industry and getting them involved in various committees and various activities of the chapter. So it's very rewarding in that regard, and I think many of us start our careers with that in mind.
You know, I think the Northeast chapter has been at the leading edge of the educational component of AAAE for the better part of the last half century. From our snow schools to the young professionals and even diversity, equity, and inclusion, the chapter has just been out in front helping to lead the industry.
The Northeast chapter is considered the educational chapter, and with the programs that's been developed through the Snow Symposium and the Snow Academies and the various aviation curriculums, it has done great over the years of bringing in young professionals. We have really the most that we ever had as far as young professionals into the chapter right now.
The Northeast chapter of the American Association of Airport Executives is the first chapter of AAAE. So we really shaped the industry by leading the way in having regional representation and assistance for airport managers in the Northeast part of the country. And we've continued that today by really focusing on education so that we make sure that existing airport executives have ongoing professional development, and we reach out to students a lot to bring in the next generation of airport managers.
NEC has been on the forefront of a lot of issues, starting as the first chapter for AAAE and bringing together people on a regional basis, and has really advanced issues, being on the front lines of the crisis of 9/11, responding to airport needs in pandemics, and really just being there to support airport and airport industry professionals with whatever's happening, good times and bad.
I think the biggest contribution that NEC has done to help the aviation industry is to increase the professionalism of airport management. There's a lot of ways through the Northeast chapter that young professionals can learn about aviation and increase their own experience and increase their knowledge, and by doing that they're really helping their airports grow into the future.
It's the Northeast, this is the busiest, with the New York City airports, Boston, Logan, all across the East Coast. It's the most populated and busiest part of the country. And NEC covers all those airports.
I think the NEC has helped shape the industry on many different levels. I think the NEC being the first chapter, we were the first ones to create regional chapters, bringing camaraderie and fellowship and peer networking to a region, and that was translated to 5 other regions. I think also the Northeast chapter has been pivotal in the training and education for snow fighters. It's unparalleled training that the Northeast chapter provides, and it's training that people all over the world have come to take. And I also think that the Northeast chapter is a proven leadership factory, if you will. We've turned out great leaders, and they've gone on to bigger and better things, and all of them are helping shape the entire industry.
NEC is integral into the national AAAE, and between various conferences and policies and input from the airports that are in NEC have been critical. I think if you look, we probably have more large hub airports in the Northeast chapter than any other chapter, and that speaks volumes.
So the chapter has been well known for offering so many opportunities for learning, and a lot of those opportunities have now turned into mandatory training. I'm just going to talk a little bit in the order that it shows up on the calendar, but we have the Airports Conference every spring in March, hosted down in Pennsylvania. Probably one of the most educational opportunities of all conferences. It's 5 tracks, 5 different disciplines in the airport management industry. That airports conference was struggling a few years back, and the chapter and under the leadership of Ed Foster, being the chair of that conference, really turned it around. Now 500, 600, 700 people every year going and learning. The International Aviation Snow Symposium follows, usually in April. 600 in a non-equipment year, nearly 1,000 in an equipment year attendance, all boots on the ground type of snow fighters in the aviation industry. And during that weekend prior to the Snow Symposium, the chapter hosts the International Aviation Snow Academies, along with the Airport Safety and Operations Schools. And all of that education opportunity has now become mandatory training for most airport employees, and that stems right from the chapter.
Well, let's start at the beginning. The Northeast chapter was the first chapter. Starting out, they organized in 57, 58, we received approval, but that was the very beginning of a chapter concept with the national organization. Just as a point, when we first started, it was required that any Northeast chapter member be a member of the national also. It wasn't to break away, but it was to augment the national membership and allow people to attend on a local basis. We could have our own conference and they could go. But that was the very beginning of it. Since then, great things have grown from the chapter events. In my opinion, one of the greatest was the developments following the creation of the Snow Symposium, where we came together in the Northeast, had an idea, this is where the snow and ice control challenge takes place. But as a result of that, the United States developed snow and ice control measures on a national basis that grew because of the Snow Symposium, and following that, the Balchin Post Awards. A fellow named Colonel Bernd Balchin was a co-founder of the event. He was a famous Arctic flyer. And when he passed in 1973, the thought was to develop a competition and award the snow crews for their excellence in safe snow operations. So that started in 75, 76. The winter of 76, 77 was the first competition for the Balchin Award, and it was presented at the May meeting in 77. And from that competition grew national standards that we have today. All through the 80s, things like friction measurement were started, the use of chemicals, and it was this national competition that caused the excellence in safety developments and regulations. But that all started with the Northeast chapter.
That's a very sweeping question. I think probably as an organization providing venues for airport management personnel to exchange ideas over the course of decades, I think we're helping organizations which are isolated in their communities, and usually there's perhaps in not the friendliest of communities, to address the needs of both the airport users and the surrounding communities that they live in.
The NEC has helped shape the aviation industry basically in a lot of firsts, right? We were the first chapter. We were the first ones to bring snow training to the industry. As we jump forward to today, we are hosting the DE&I conference with the AAAE National Organization. So a lot of firsts through the Northeast chapter, and those firsts have really helped to shape the industry and guide us to where we are today.